Wake up with a smile, and then in a while, come to lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies.
Welcome to today's show. Today we welcome our very special guest, acclaimed actress, voice actress, and musician Olivia D'Abo. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Olivia in the past, so I'm aware of her huge body of work since she was a child actress, which goes all the way into the present. She's been in a bevy of shows and movies that we all know and have grown up with, such as Fantasy Island, Growing Pains, The Single Guy, Star Trek, Star Wars, Law and Order, Kicking and Screaming, and many, many more. She recently completed a film starring alongside Josh Duhamel and Mel Gibson. Her film about child trafficking, Angie, Lost Girls, is streaming just about everywhere. But we all know Olivia from her most iconic role as Kevin Arnold's older sister, Karen Arnold, on The Wonder Years, which, by the way, is getting a reboot. So today we'll find out more about Olivia and we'll get the answers to these two burning questions. What does Karen Arnold have in common with Carrie Bradshaw? And what famous rocker has Olivia recorded music with? Olivia, it's so great to have you on the show today.
Suzanne, it's always lovely to be in your company, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. We're going to have some fun today.
We already are.
So I like to start the show with getting to know the hosts. And, you know, we're chatting like we're having lunch. So the question that I'm going to pose to everyone today is, aside from the Wonder Years, which we all loved and all watched, can we think of a couple of other shows from the 70s, 80s, 90s that are so memorable? It's like one of our favorite shows. I'm going to start with you, Ileana.
Oh, well, I have to definitely throw in Family Ties. Who didn't have a crush on Alex P. Keaton, right? And still do. And Facts of Life. Oh, there's so many shows. The Love Boat. So many great shows in that time period.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have that much of a selection either when you think about it compared to now.
Right, not compared to now.
Compared to now. And what about you, Beth?
I remember staying home and babysitting my sisters and making everyone stay quiet to watch Mary Tyler Moore. I loved that show. And then later on, I really loved the Golden Girls.
Wow.
Because, really just because Rose was so Betty White. It was just classic.
You know, we're the age of some of those Golden Girls.
It was
Watch it again and see, oh my, I thought they were really old.
okay. Maybe that's why I remember it so clearly.
Yep.
Now.
Betty's giving us a run for our money because she's, going to live out everyone. She's such an inspiration, that woman, you know? I mean, she does not run into the category of seniors who have trouble learning their lines or retaining them. You know, she's still got that wonderful Spitfire energy and brain. You know, it's really inspirational.
It really is.
She is. What about you, Zani?
Well, the Jeffersons was one of my favorite. I love the whole mix and diversity of all of the different characters. And Fantasy Island, I always enjoyed, week after week, all of the different, characters that would come on, the different plots and everything that played out.
Do you know Fantasy Island is also getting a reboot on Fox Network?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Messalina?
So I wasn't really able to watch things in the 80s because I wasn't really around.
Okay.
Sorry.
Rub that in, why don't you?
So for me growing up, I think the two shows that I'd watch, and I guess, I don't know if you'll count one as a sitcom because technically it's like, well, it's The Simpsons, so it was the first cartoon sitcom. I loved both those shows and I was obsessed, and they were just so funny. And I mean, I love them. And Kramer and Simpson and Seinfeld was just so funny. And like his physical acting was incredible. So I loved that. I loved watching those. And like I say, it was like, there would be temper tantrums when I was little if I didn't get my sitcom hour from 7 till 8. So those are the shows that I loved.
Cool. And what about you, Olivia?
Anything by Norman Lear, you know. I just think he was such an incredible gift to television. Just an iconic figure, and everything he wrote had such a formulaic sensibility. Sanford and Son, One Day at a Time, the Jeffersons, Good Times. I also loved Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah.
You know, when I came to this country, all those shows were on, some of them in repeats. I think, I loved Star Trek. Those were definitely in repeats. My brother and I used to watch that. And All in the Family, just classic family shows. MASH. Those are the shows that really, for me, carved out the pathway for the Wonder Years, really, because the Wonder Years embodied that formulaic thing that, you mentioned Growing Pains. Neil and Carol Marlins were part of, they were the creators of that. So then they went on to do the Wonder Years. So they really had that great, experience of how to kind of make a real family on television, how to do it appropriately, and where you felt like these people were really interacting with each other every day. So those are mine.
Cool. Well, and that sitcom, starting with I Love Lucy, the first, I did believe that was the first camera kind of sitcom, that really paved the way, and really the formula has not changed all too much these days.
And even they interact like a family. They sort of finish each other's sentences. And the thing that I love Lucy had is the audience was always 10 steps ahead of her. So they always knew, because her main objective was just to be with Desi. The audience knew that, and they loved her for it. So whenever she was scheming or up to something, it would be about Ricky. And I think Seinfeld was like that, and a lot of these family shows sort of embodied that too.
Yeah.
For the audience.
Yeah. Yes. I Love Lucy. That's going way back for you, Messalina. But a lot of the shows all of you ladies mentioned, like Growing Pains and Family Ties, and I loved the Jeffersons. I'm just going to give a shout out to the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family, because that was must be on a Friday night. So, and that's going with, and Bewitched. I loved Bewitched.
Oh yeah.
So let's get to know Olivia a little bit better. We're going to play a game called I Wonder. So everyone gets to ask her a question, and I'll ask the first question of Olivia today. And my question is, I wonder, Olivia, when did you want to become a child actress, and how did you get on the Wonder Years?
Okay, well, I wanted to become a child actress. My first experience that sort of gave me the bug was my father was doing a musical that he had actually wrote called Gulliver's Travels, because he was a musician, but this was his he was asked to write this musical, and he did it. He pulled it off very well. I was born the time that he did it. The first time my brother was born, the second time he did it. When I was about 7, he went back on stage to do it. It was my birthday. My grandmother took me there with all my friends, and my father starts walking down the aisles as Gulliver's, which in theater we call it breaking down the fourth wall, and he's shining an apple on his lapel as Gulliver would, and he walks right past the audience and he gets up on stage. So I get right out of my seat, and he's my dad, I mean, in my mind. So I follow him on stage.
Oh no, Daddy, I want to be on the stage with you too. Look at all these people, they're so lovely. Hello.
Like, no, Olivia, you need to go and sit down.
And how old were you?
7.
That's adorable.
But I was with my dad, so I felt incredibly comfortable, and it was like a religious experience. I got this sensibility of omnipotence in a way, you know, just being up on stage and immediately getting this energy back from the audience. So that's what made me that's what gave me the bug. I did get back on stage with them subsequently afterwards. And we sang a song and my friends came on stage with me. But I think it's that live theatrical aspect that really made me want to perform.
Cool. And how did you get on the Wonder Years?
Well, I certainly, I auditioned with about 2,000 other girls at the time, and I had done Growing Pains. Neil and Carol knew that I had the diversity to play Karen because I played 2 different roles on Growing Pains, as had Dan, who played Jack Arnold. So they had me in, and I was their first choice for Karen, but I had to obviously convince the network and the casting director. And so I went back in 5 different times on 5 different occasions with the same clothes that my mother had lent me from her being in the 60s, and about as flower power as my mom had. My mom was more of a Maud 60s chick, but she had some things with patterns, and I got, you know, long extensions put in down to my bum. I mean, it was my role. I was just, there was no way I wasn't going to get this role. It was the best script I'd ever written, and I so identified with her and with the script that so I ended up getting it. Yeah, the last experience was with the network at ABC, and I read with Ali Mills, and I did the burning your bras scene.
Wonderful. And I guess we'll answer one of the questions that we posed at the beginning of the show now, but one of your Karen Arnold's boyfriends on that show was the same boyfriend that Carrie Bradshaw had. And who would that be, Olivia?
David Schwimmer? No, yes. He was so wonderful. My God, what a sweetheart. He had this incredible quality. He was like a cross between, he reminded me of a puppy dog, you know, but these big eyes. And
yeah.
And
John Corbett, am I pronouncing his name correctly?
Corbett.
Yes.
Corbett. Yeah, John Corbett.
Yes.
You know, it's a hard choice, but I think because of the character that John played, who was sort of more, you know, total hippie and, you know, not, you know, into polygamy, and, you know, Fred didn't like that on the show.
Yeah. No, I don't know any dad that would.
No. And I was like, look, I'm not a Mormon, so I'm not into it either.
You'll have to watch that. If you haven't watched that show, I did, you know, look for it on streaming, and that's the show that I happened to catch. So
Okay.
Good episode to watch.
I was wondering, what was it like growing up on a sitcom? You know, did you ever go to real school?
I did. If you can call it a real school, I went to a science. Not that I was a Scientologist, but because it was the only school that I could be enrolled in, where I'd be able to go on location, and get my work sent to me, and I would get a tutor. But you know, when I was doing Conan the Destroyer, I would, you know, I had a tutor for the duration of the 6 months that I was there, whether it be in a volcano, where we were shooting location wise. We would then do a social studies thing about, you know, the ancient Mexican volcano, and if we could find any arrowheads there, or, you know, it was something. I had a great tutor. That was my favorite tutor. But for the most part, I was in school. It was just, it was either Apple, which was you know, it was a high school. And I also went to a magnet school called Pacoima Junior High, which is where I won a bunch of Shakespearean contests, and I was writing songs for the dance troupe and playing it live as their accompaniment. And I was, you know, learning my craft at a very young age. Pacoima Junior High was sort of the equivalent of LaGuardia in New York, which is also a very arts school, or the Fame School that they made the television show about.
Yes.
Olivia, I was wondering, you mentioned your famous dad, who's a musician.
Yes.
So growing up, were there a lot of other famous musicians in and out of your house? If so, who? Tell us. Vicarious thought.
That is a great question, and something that I think Suzanne and I discussed when last we spoke. A lot of them actually, Dusty Springfield, who is amazing, who would show up with, you know, literally just bling from head to toe, you know, amazing earrings and like rings all over her hands and bracelets all the way up, and just these sparkling eyes and just this beautiful, very ladylike woman, very composed, you know, but obviously she was a musician, so she was pretty groovy. She would come round and I looked up to her, and she smelt so wonderful. She had this great perfume. She just always looked stellar. She'd come round to write songs with my dad. Elton John would come round, Cat Stevens, Rod Stewart, because he was always looking for a good song, you know, and subsequently did end up getting this song called Handbags and Glad Rags that my dad wrote. But, you know, it's funny, you know, musicians who aren't songwriters, and I'm sure Rod's written some amazing songs, but at that point in time, in the 70s, it was very much about, you know, you go to the songwriter and you get the song, you know, as an artist. So, you know, he was coming around just, you know, come on, Mike, you've got to let me have that song, you know, that song, such a gem, you know, and I can really do something with it. And ended up being a #1. So, yes, it was constant. They would come in, go down to the basement where my dad's studio was. I'd hang out by the basement steps and just listen to the melodies and the music. It was incredible.
Just thrilling. I mean, you must have just been mesmerized, and your house must have just been filled with beautiful music.
It was, you know, and my mother as well, you know, she'd be on television quite a lot. She'd been a very famous model, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and was in Hard Day's Night and 2001: Space Odyssey. So she was very tapped into the 60s that then permeated into the 70s, and she was very social. So she brought a lot of great people over to the house as well, you know, who were friends and musicians and actors. And yeah, I had an enchanting childhood. It's really a rarity, and I look back in retrospect and think, my God, how lucky I was. It was almost like a dream.
Yeah, you certainly have had a lot of different personalities there, and someday I see a book coming out of it with all the people that you've encountered.
Olivia, I was wondering, were you friends with other actors that were close to your age? And there's two other parts to this. Did you hang out with them, and do you keep in touch with any of them today?
I think we're wondering about the actors on the Wonder Years.
On the Wonder Years, right.
Yeah, all of the actors in the Wonder Years. You know, I was sort of between ages. I was younger, obviously, than my parents, and you know, a few years older than Fred. I was a teenager when he was like 11 on the show, and Danica and Josh. But we all do keep in very close contact, and I think that's really displayed well when you see the you know, that when we all got around the table for releasing the 250 shows, it was we finally got the music publishing, and so you could really see before that show came out, you know, they wanted to definitely have stories and get the sensibility of all of us as friends, you know, like the thing that they just did with Friends, you know, when they got them all together again. So you can really see the bonding that's developed. When you grow up with people who are sort of your peers and you work with them for 6 years, you know, you really do. I mean, depending on what age you are, and in my case, I was a teenager. You know, it was a highly influential time, and probably even more highly influential time for Danica and Fred and Josh. But, you know, because we went to school, there was a teacher there, you know, we had lunch together, we played around on the set. You know, we knew about each other's lives, who each other's boyfriends and girlfriends were. And so that was all very, very much fun. But there's a common respect. It's almost like a sisterhood and a brotherhood that I have with everyone on that show. And I'm always they're like my family. So I hold them very close to my heart.
Quite a childhood, Olivia. Messalina, what about you? Are you wondering anything about Olivia?
But I also just have to say I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and so I think it's super cool that you were the voice of Luminara and Julie, because that's like awesome. But then you've done so much and so many different genres, and I would love to know, what is your most favorite and memorable role, like out of everything you've done?
Gosh, there's a couple of things that I've just done in the Zen and Stephen Dorff, which is coming out, called Into the Light, which is a really, really a wonderful role, and that I really enjoyed. A lot of current stuff actually that I've just done. The film I just did with the Josh Duhamel and Mel Gibson. But I loved. If I had to choose, do I have to choose one? It's animation as well. Luminara is amazing because she's a Jedi. I loved playing an omnipotent Q in Star Trek. Obviously, I loved playing Karen in the Wonder Years because of her bohemian sensibility and her dogmatic, feminist approach to everything, and how strong she was, as an adolescent. I also love Nicole Wallace, who's, even though she's a sociopath, great. She's a strong woman. I love playing strong women, whether they be Jedis or Qs or sociopaths or hippies. Where they're coming from usually is that they're fighting for their own truth and their voice, which I think as women, that glass ceiling is starting to lift, thank God, which is amazing for somebody in your generation, because I think you're going to see a lot more opportunity. But we really, I love anything that I get to play that's female, that is pushing the trying to get there in their evolution, in their plight, to make a difference somehow and speak their truth and let their strength come through and be heard.
Yes, and that is what we're all looking for, is more female roles, more strong women to look up to, diverse, different types of women, and women over a certain age. We're looking for roles and people like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap this up with one other question. Is what is on tap for you for, say, the next 5 years?
Well, I'm doing another album at the moment, which is very exciting. It's great to be recording during the summer, and so music is very much in the loop for me, and I think directing and producing, and I'm so blessed. It's almost like this year, for some reason, for me, and it's ironic that it's happening on the tail end of coronavirus. It's an incredible, and I'm sure you ladies all feel this way. It's, we have gone through so much in this last few years that we've gone so way past our threshold, that I think what's coming to us is great, very interesting creative work opportunities, like this show for you, Suzanne, and all of you guys on this. So for me, it's to just continue to create and expand great content, be more of a creator, and be on the other side of the fence. I'm still going to act, but I'm very, very interested in directing and producing as well.
Wow. And I think the pandemic has spurred a lot of creativity and people going out of their comfort zone. And thank you for recognizing that and doing some new creative things. We're going to rapid fire hit you with a few questions to find out a little bit more about you. So be prepared. We're going to start a few quick questions, and then we're going to find out about the rock star, because we haven't covered that yet. So we'll start with Beth. Question for Olivia.
Olivia, what have you been binge watching?
Fleabag, and The Crown, and Better Things. And I would just say off the top of my head those three things. I know one of that Fleabag's not going on anymore, unfortunately, but it's I'm addicted, I'm obsessed. So, and The Crown, of course, hard to that, and Succession, actually, to add to that.
Oh, okay.
So you love that? Oh, I'm just in awe of that show. I think it's brilliant.
So much good stuff. Eliana.
So are you excited Excited about this new Wonder Years, and I wonder, do you think that it'll spark a rise in watching the original show?
I'm very excited about it because I think that story has to be told. I mean, in that era, I think it's such a deep-rooted part of American history. The fact that they're going to be covering Selma and the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King. I mean, that was all going on and never mentioned when we did our show. I mean, maybe possibly my character Karen, you know, going to Woodstock, and I know I was very aligned with civil rights and feminism and all of that stuff, but it was never really covered through Kevin Arnold eyes. So I think that this is a really finite opportunity to galvanize and educate this country and this new generation about, you know, about what happened, what's going on, and what the healing that we are currently in. I think it's, you know, with civil rights and systemic racism and all of that stuff, I think it's going to really be very profound. And I think that the cast is just incredible. You know, I've worked with Dul on Psych, and he's amazing. And Don Cheadle, obviously, and the fact that Fred is involved directing, I think is amazing, because he's a very deep thinker, and he's a bit of an activist, and he's a humanitarian. So I think that he's going to bring out the very best in terms of the content.
What movies are you into these days?
You know, anything that has a human voice and you know, that resonates with, you know, especially coming out of Corona, you know, I think I love fantasy stuff, but I also love stuff that's it has to hold my attention. It has to be something that's relatable, you know, and not too lightweight, unless it's a comedy, of course, that's wonderful. But suspenseful stuff, dramas, I you know, and things about families that families going through stuff and staying together as a family unit are very appealing to me, being a mother.
Your go-to habit or a place that makes you feel better?
The sea makes me feel better, because I get so much back from the negative ions, and it's a meditative state that it puts me in. I relax. It's like having a great massage. The mountains, rivers, the desert, and a go-to habit. Did you say?
Yes, your go-to habit.
Anything with salt in it.
Oh, okay.
You know, like those you know, salt and vinegar potato chips.
Right.
I mean, hard to count. You know, us ladies with our girlish figures, we need to keep the sodium down to a minimum. But you know, I'm more of a salty person than a sweet person. I like salt. So yeah, potato chips. Or anything salty.
Best vacation ever.
Oh, well, haven't been there yet, but I know it's going to be the Galapagos Islands, hands down, because of the, you know, prehistoric land masses, and the you know, it's just there's several of them. You know, there's like the middle-aged, you know, islands, there's the teenage islands, and then there's the, you know, the ones that are going eventually back into the sea. And so I always wanted to be an archaeologist or a geologist. So that fascinates me. And I love animals. I like Karen. I you know, on the Wonder Years, she was very into Greenpeace, and so am I. So yeah, I want to go see all those animals, those dragons that go into the sea, and those big turtles, and all of them, you know.
You mentioned all these wonderful outdoor places, the mountains and rivers and oceans, but what's your favorite staycation?
Staycation, though I should know the meaning of that, because I just did a film called Staycation. You mean staying here?
There, yes.
That would be, well, so does it have to be strictly in Los Angeles, or just staying within the realm of California?
Oh, either one. You can stay within California. I don't know the difference.
San Francisco.
Okay.
I love and I love a place called Joshua Tree, which is in the desert. There's a park there that if you drive through it, you feel like you've landed on the moon or some just incredibly exotic planet. You know, there's cactuses everywhere and just like, caves and rock, prehistoric rock. And then there's the water there, which has lithium in it. So nobody in Joshua Tree or Two Bunch Palms has any sense of depression whatsoever, because the water it comes up from the ground and it's got minerals in it that just make you happy and relaxed. So
Sounds well.
Yeah, you've got to check it out. It's
Sign us up.
Yeah.
You can fly into Palm Springs from anywhere in the world. It's an incredible airport, and then you just drive about half an hour and you're in Two Bunch Palms or Joshua Tree. So it's on my list as a really great place to go.
On my list now too.
Yeah. So one last thing, because we didn't answer the other question is, and who did you do an album with? A famous Jersey rocker?
Well, that would be Bon Jovi. Yeah, I did a duet of a song which you all know and love, I'm sure, called "Living on a Prayer," and it was produced by Patrick Leonard. And I'll keep it really quick, but they were actually casting for the role to sing with him, right? Because it's a well-known song. I was in the middle of an album at the time. Patrick Leonard was producing their album, and Jon Bon Jovi walked in the room and he heard me singing and he was like, that's the voice. And so I beat out like all these amazing singers like Pink and Christina Aguilera and Sheryl Crow. It's almost like he was looking for a timbre in the voice that was similar to his. So when we did record the duet, Patrick put us both on the same mic, so it was hard to tell who was singing what. It was almost like the same voice, but a female voice. So that was a real honor.
And it sounds wonderful. I listened to it on my Alexa. It filled the room. I just absolutely loved it. And what I also loved is having Olivia here with us today. I really appreciate it. There's so much to talk to you about, but I'm glad we got to talk about a lot of what you're doing. And what I'm going to talk about now also is a charity that is near and dear to Olivia's heart. At the end of the show, we like to do a charity shout out. Today's charity shout out is Artists for Change. Olivia and I both happen to be a member of this group. It was created by filmmaker Julia Verdon. She creates films that inspire social change and create awareness. And Olivia, especially myself included, and Zani also, we work in with the same kind of group of people, of homeless people, teens, foster children that need to find their way. So please check out Artists for Change, artistsforchange.org. You can donate, you can watch some films, you can just get to see what we're all about. But awareness is what creates change, and that's what Artists for Change is all about. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'd also like to tell anyone watching to find us on YouTube at Lunch with the Ladies, all one word. Follow us on Facebook. We will also have updates on what all of our guests, including Olivia, are doing on our Facebook page. And as always, every single day, give some joy and find some joy. Thank you, everyone.
Wake up with a smile, and then in a while, come to lunch with the